I think I started considering in legal context explicitly the first time that I read the Treaty of Alfred and Guthrum, which is this kind of like weird throwaway text that most people, if they're not working specifically in medieval law, would ever have encountered. Like, it's not especially poetic. There's nothing that doesn't have a lot of literary merit. But the form of that treaty is so shockingly and uncannily identical to the form of the treaty that the U.S. made in kind of batches with Indigenous nations. It has a preamble that fulfills the exact same rhetorical functions, even using some of the same language. The first article is about land and the way that land is going to be divided. The second article is about trade agreements. The third article sort of moves on from there. And this is the exact rhetorical form of the treaty that governs my nation, the Confederated Salish and Kutenai tribes. And I was so struck that in literally 1,000 years, the form of the treaty had not changed. And so for me, that was a moment that really collapsed time in very specific ways. Like, these things are not that far apart. That time in this sense, when we're thinking about the way that ideas sort of structure the human condition and the way that that human condition then moves through the world, time is kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways to this point. So I'm really excited to get people thinking in terms that really tries to collapse what we imagine otherwise as a kind of insurmountable distance. And there are, of course, studies that do this more specifically. There's Michael Matarelli has a whole book about the transatlantic genealogy of Anglo-Saxonism. Thomas Jefferson very famously was obsessed with Old English laws. So there are kind of like immediate paper trails that we could follow, and I think it's important to acknowledge those, but also I want to see what's more often invisible in those sorts of interactions, like along the peripheries of Jefferson's explicit evocation of Old English law is something else that's kind of like happening there that has much more to do with kind of epistemic thinking that I want to kind of engage with. We had little pocket versions of the treaty. My grandpa had one. I don't know where he got it. I don't know if my grandpa worked for the tribe. He was an appraiser for the tribe all when I was growing up. And so I got to spend like a lot of time at the tribal offices, and in his jockey box he just had like a little pocket version of the treaty. So I grew up kind of just reading that like you do when you're on long drives or whatever, and you like pick stuff out of a glove compartment. And so like that was a treaty that I was like pretty intimately familiar with. And so then to just watch it like appear almost mythically in its same form. And I think too, as someone who like studied English in its kind of formal ways, I am really attuned to like questions of form. And so for it to like look laid out on the page in the same way in the edited versions was also just really disconcerting, and it's really wild. It's crazy.